Desenzano is a small town in northern Italy, situated on the southern edge of Lake Garda. In the market square, the statue of the town's patron saint, Angela Merici, can be found. Angela Merici was born in Desenzano, probably in 1474, and probably, it is said, in the house numbered 96 in the Via del Castello. Her father, Giovanni Merici, was a farmer with Brescian citizenship, probably noble. Her mother, Caterina, belonged to the distinguished family Biancosi dei Bianchi of Salò. Angela had 2 or 3 brothers and 1 sister. Angela herself was a sensitive child. She grew up in the family farmhouse Le Grezze, not far from the city. Rural life shaped her childhood. Help with the housework and the family's highly religious attitude. Even as a 5-year-old, she listened avidly when her father read during the evening, perhaps from the Imitation of Christ and the Golden Legend, the collection of lives of the saints, which was available at that time in vernacular translation. The fasting and prayer habits, which were encouraged in the Le Grezze family circle, remained with her throughout her life. Even without instruction, she learned to read, and later in her life she enjoyed reading the Bible and the writings of the Fathers of the Church in Latin. She was a highly educated woman for her time. The death of her father and older sister brought sorrow into Angela's youthful life. After her mother also died, circumstances took her and her younger brother to her uncle's family in Salò, a small city on the western shore of Lake Garda. Angela was about 16 at this time. Here in Salò, she encountered the luxurious lifestyle of high society. In these circumstances, she struggled to remain faithful to her own vision of life, prayerful and religious, and in this effort she went to the Franciscans for support. She asked for admission to the Third Order of St. Francis, a lay community. Today it is called the Secular Franciscan Order, which gave an individual the opportunity to live a religious life and to practice charity. All her life, Angela continued to wear the Franciscan gray dress and white veil, and it was understood that she was Sister Angela, tertiary. At the age of 20, she returned to Le Grezze to the family home, which she had inherited. She was not poor, but she lived unassumingly and withdrawn. She lived a life of helping others, as was customary in the country. House and field work and personal prayer marked their daily lives. In this sense, Sister Angela was very much respected by the people. During this time, she is said to have once had, during a lunch break in the fields, an inner vision in which she saw her beloved sister coming down from heaven in the midst of angels. The procession stopped before her, and her sister told her that God wanted to establish with their help a community of consecrated young women. This prophetic call runs through her entire life, but decades will pass before the promise is fulfilled. In 1516, the Franciscans asked Angela to go to Brescia to comfort Caterina Pettengola, who lost in a very short time her husband and 3 grown children. Angela is now over 40 years old. In the war-torn city, she saw firsthand poverty and hardship, but especially the plight of moral decay. Here she encountered also the new religious lay movements of the time. There were men who came together to form guilds in order to develop their personal piety, to connect with a Christian way of life, and to be involved in social commitment. One such group, the Compagnia del Divino Amore, the Community of Divine Love, played an important role in this regard. It was founded in 1497 in Genoa, and a similar group was also formed in Brescia in 1525. Another fraternity was founded in 1520 called a Luogo Pio, a hospital for the so-called incurables, men and women suffering from syphilis. Upper-class women of Brescia, among them the young widow Isabetta Prato, cared for orphans, vulnerable young women, and former prostitutes. Angela did not seem to be associated with this work. However, there was a group of young men and women, including Girolamo Patangola, Giovan Antonio Romano, Agostino Gallo, and friends, who formed an intellectual center around her. During this time, she lived in the house of Giovan Antonio Romano, earning her living by being useful in the household. Romano and Gallo depicted Angela's everyday life. Her meals were meager, consisting of fruit, vegetables, and fish. She only ate meat if she was ill, and she never drank wine. She slept on a straw mat with a piece of wood as a pillow, and spent much of the night in prayer. Many people sought her advice, and she was able to help in any emergency situation. Her advice was always so wise, so kind, and so clever that her room was never empty of people seeking it. One of her special gifts was that of reconciliation. In 1534, Angela, together with Giovan Antonio Romano, made a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. On the way, she was afflicted with an eye disease that made her almost blind. However, Angela did not cancel the pilgrimage. Instead, she declared that though physically blind, one can experience things more intensely with the heart. The return trip was perilous, and Angela's fellow passengers and crew attributed to her prayer their safe return to Venice. In fact, the Venetian nobles appreciated Angela so much that they asked her to stay and participate in the local Luoghi Pii. She kindly but decisively declined their invitation. In the holy year of 1525, Angela joined a group of pilgrims going to Rome. During a private audience with Pope Clement VII, he asked her to become involved in the charitable institutions in Rome. But she also declined this invitation and returned to Brescia with the blessing of the Pope. She knew that her place was in Brescia. In 1528 or 1529, she again made a pilgrimage, this time to the Sacro Monte of Varallo, where the Way of the Cross was replicated in life-size figures to provide a place of prayer for those who could not travel to the Holy Land. On the return trip, her group visited Milan. Here, Duke Francesco Sforza II, who recognized in her a trusted spiritual guide, also asked her to remain, and again she declined. In 1529, at the urging of friends, Angela fled to Cremona because of a threatened siege of Brescia by the troops of Charles V. Here too she was visited by people of every class who asked for her spiritual help. In Cremona, Angela became dangerously ill, but to the surprise of all, she miraculously recovered. In 1530, Angela returned to Brescia. Romano had since married. Therefore, she accepted the offer of Agostino Gallo and moved into his house opposite the church of San Clemente. But soon afterward, she decided to leave his comfortable home for a small apartment near the church of San Barnaba, and a little later she shared lodgings with Barbara Fontana, a young woman near the church of Sant'Afra. By this time, Angela has become physically frail, but mentally she was still full of energy. She realized at this point that she did not have much time left. From 1531 on, a group of young women began to gather around her. They began to meet regularly for prayer, for sharing, and religious instruction. The widow, Isabetta Prato, gave the group space in her home that Angela set up as an oratory. On the 25th of November, 1535, with 28 young women, Angela founded the Compagnia of Sant'Ursula, the community of Saint Ursula. Angela Merici wrote for this community, together with its subsidiaries, a rule confirmed by the Bishop of Brescia in 1536. In 1537, she was officially elected Superior General. When Angela became seriously ill in 1539, she dictated to her secretary and friend, Gabriele Cozzano, her testament, Legati, and the words of remembrance, a ricordi, for those who would lead the community after her death. On the afternoon of the 27th of January, 1540, Angela died in her room at St. Afra. The next day she was laid out in the church, dressed in a gray dress and the white veil of the Franciscan tertiary. The city chronicler Nasino Pandolfo noted, "She died between the 65th and 70th year of age, a woman of medium size but very slim figure. She was usually dressed in gray. On the 28th of this month, at 10 o'clock in the morning, she was carried to the church of Sant'Afra. I saw her myself. Her body was taken with such ceremony and amidst such a large crowd that the train seemed like the funeral of a prince. The reason for all this was that Madre Suor Angela preached far and wide belief in the Almighty God and was loved by all." Among the population of Brescia, she was revered as a saint. It was not until 1807 that the Catholic Church formally included her in the canon of saints. Today, Angela Merici's body rests in a crystal sarcophagus in the Church of St. Angela, formerly the Church of St. Afra in Brescia.